Foundations of Sand. Harrison Kellen had worked tirelessly for the last 20 years of his life, taking every opportunity that came his way and spinning them into gold. The son of a blue-collar factory worker and a receptionist who both died when he was 21, Harry had learned early that the world owed him nothing and that anything worth having must be earned through blood, sweat, and tactical intelligence. By 45, he had amassed a respectable fortune through his construction and real estate ventures. The crown jewel of his portfolio was the stunning colonial-style mansion on Lakeside Drive, a property worth just over $500,000 that he had purchased from the proceeds of his 3 most profitable development projects. When he met Lorraine Porter 8 years ago at a charity gala, he had been instantly captivated by her sophisticated charm, slender figure, and the way her auburn hair caught the light. Harry wasn't a romantic by nature, but there was something about Lorraine that made him want to provide for her, to show her that his self-made success could match the old money she had grown up with. "You're quite the find, Harrison," she had said during their first dinner together, her fingers trailing over his calloused palm. "Not like most of the men in my circle." What Harry didn't realize then was that being different from the men in Lorraine's circle wasn't necessarily a compliment. It was an assessment. Marriage came quickly, perhaps too quickly. Harry's friend Leonard Leo Walters had warned him. "Harry, buddy, I'm not saying she's not into you, but 4 months? That's faster than my first oil change," Leo had said over beers at their regular spot. "And she's got the kid, right? The teenage daughter? That's a package deal." Harry had waved off Leo's concerns. Vanessa, Lorraine's daughter from her brief first marriage to a man who had sadly passed away, as Lorraine always put it, was 14 when they married. Now, at 22, she was about to be married herself to Terrence Sullivan, the son of a local judge. What Harry had discovered over the years was that being Vanessa's stepfather meant financing her education, her lifestyle, and her whims, but never actually gaining her respect or affection. She treated him with a detached politeness that occasionally slipped into barely concealed disdain. The Porters, Vernon and Gloria, had never approved of Harry despite his financial success. Vernon, a banking executive with thinning silver hair and a perpetual scowl, had made it clear from their first meeting that he considered Harry beneath them. "Construction, is it?" Vernon had said with a thin smile at their first meeting. "How enterprising." Gloria Porter, with her collection of tennis bracelets and designer handbags, was even less subtle. "Of course, we're just happy Lorraine found someone after that awful tragedy with Brandon," she'd say, referring to Vanessa's father. "Even if it's not quite what we imagined for her." Harry had tried, perhaps too hard, to win their approval. He bought Lorraine the Lexus she wanted, sent Vanessa to the private college of her choice, and even financed Vernon's buy-in to an exclusive country club when the older man had liquidity issues he didn't want his peers to know about. But no amount of generosity seemed to change their opinion of him. "They see me as the help, Leo," Harry admitted one night after a particularly tense dinner with the Porters. "Just with a bigger bank account." Leo, nursing his bourbon, shook his head. "That's because you're acting like the help, Harry. You've given them everything and asked for nothing. That's not a husband or a father. That's an ATM." Harry knew his friend was right, but something in him, perhaps the orphan young man who had never had a real family, wanted to believe that eventually they would accept him. Then came the wedding plans. Vanessa and Terrence's wedding was to be the social event of the season, at least according to Gloria Porter, who had taken control of every detail. The venue, the flowers, the guest list, all were managed with military precision by Gloria, with occasional input from Lorraine and none from Vanessa herself, who seemed strangely detached from the whole process. And the bill, all of it, was handed to Harry. The initial budget of $75,000 had almost doubled by the time the deposits were due. Harry had questioned the expense once, only once, over dinner. The silence that followed was arctic. "If you find it too burdensome," Vernon had finally said, "perhaps you should have considered that before taking on a family." Harry had paid the bills without complaint after that, but something had shifted in him. A seed of resentment, planted years ago, began to take root. There were other changes, too. Lorraine's late nights at her charity committee meetings. The new perfume she wore, but never when they went out together. The text messages that made her smile in a way Harry hadn't seen directed at him in years. Harry began to wonder if the house he had worked so hard for would be the only thing in his life that was truly his. Chapter 2. cracks in the facade. As the wedding date approached, Harry found himself increasingly sidelined in the preparations despite being the primary financial contributor. Whenever he attended tastings or venue visits, he was introduced by Gloria as Vanessa's stepfather rather than by name, as if his identity was solely defined by his relationship to her family. One evening, 2 weeks before the wedding, Harry returned early from a business trip to Cincinnati. The house was quiet when he arrived, but Lorraine's car was in the driveway. Loosening his tie, he made his way upstairs, intending to surprise her. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and he could hear Lorraine's voice, low and intimate, coming from inside. I know, she was saying. It's just a little longer, Max. After Vanessa's wedding, we'll figure it out. Harry froze in the hallway, his heart hammering in his chest. No, he doesn't suspect anything, Lorraine continued. You know Harry, all business, never sees what's right in front of him. There was a pause, and then a laugh that Harry hadn't heard from his wife in years. God, I miss you too. Last night was. I don't think I've ever felt like that before. Harry's hand tightened on the doorframe, the wood creaking beneath his grip. He forced himself to step back, to retreat down the stairs silently, his mind racing. Maxwell Pierce. It had to be. Vernon's business partner at the bank, the man who had been at their dinner table a dozen times, who had shaken Harry's hand while supposedly admiring his business acumen. The same man who had danced with Lorraine at the bank's Christmas party, their bodies just slightly too close. Harry drove to Leo's place, his vision blurred with anger and betrayal. Leo opened the door in sweatpants and a faded Eagles t-shirt, took one look at Harry's face, and ushered him inside. She's cheating, Harry said without preamble, accepting the glass of whiskey Leo handed him. With Pierce. Leo didn't look surprised. You sure? Heard it from her own mouth. Phone call. Leo sat heavily on the worn leather couch across from Harry. What are you going to do? Harry stared into his glass. I don't know yet, but I'm not going to be their fool anymore. The next day, Harry met Terence Sullivan for lunch, ostensibly to discuss some last-minute wedding details. Terence was a clean-cut young man with intelligent eyes and a reserved manner that seemed at odds with Vanessa's entitled personality. I appreciate you making time for this, Terence, Harry said after they had ordered. I wanted to check in, man to man, about how you're feeling about everything. Terence looked surprised at the question. Honestly, I'm a bit overwhelmed, Mr. Kellen. This wedding has become something I barely recognize from what Vanessa and I initially wanted. Call me Harry, please, Harry said, leaning forward. And I get it. The Porters can be forceful. Terence glanced around the restaurant, then lowered his voice. Between us, sir, I've been having some doubts. Not about Vanessa, he added quickly. I love her. But this family, there's something off. Vanessa changes when she's around them, becomes someone I don't recognize. Harry felt a spark of interest. How so? She becomes colder, more calculating. Terence looked down at his untouched salad. Last week, I overheard her on the phone with her mother, discussing how you would be handled at the wedding. Making sure you knew your place, were their exact words. The revelation should have hurt, but Harry found himself oddly numb to it. And yet you're still going through with the wedding? I believe in Vanessa, Terence said, though his voice lacked conviction. I think once we're married, once we create some distance from her family, things will be different. Harry studied the younger man, wondering if he had ever been that naive. For your sake, I hope you're right. As the meal concluded, Terence hesitated before saying, There's something else. I've noticed Mr. Porter and Mr. Pierce having some intense conversations recently. I overheard them arguing about some financial arrangement that needed to be settled before the wedding. They mentioned your name. Harry's eyes narrowed. My name specifically? In what context? They were discussing assets, from what I could gather. Mr. Porter said something about how Harry's contribution would solve everything. I assumed they meant the wedding costs, but it seemed like more, Harry finished. Terence nodded uncomfortably. Just thought you should know. That night, after ensuring Lorraine was asleep, Harry slipped into his home office and began searching through their financial documents. They had maintained separate accounts throughout their marriage, a decision that Lorraine had initially resisted but eventually accepted when Harry made it clear it was non-negotiable. Now he was grateful for that foresight. While the wedding expenses had put a dent in his liquid assets, his overall financial position was solid. The house was in his name only, purchased years before he met Lorraine. There was nothing the Porters could legally touch. But as he dug deeper, he discovered something concerning. Vernon Porter had taken out a second mortgage on his own home 6 months ago, and from the bank statements Harry could access through their shared tax documentation, it appeared the Porters were in significant financial trouble. Harry sat back in his chair, the pieces beginning to fall into place. The lavish wedding, the increased friendliness from Vernon in recent months, the cryptic conversation Terence had overheard. They needed money, his money. A cold smile spread across Harry's face. For the first time in years, he felt like he had the upper hand. The question was, how would he play it? Chapter 3. The Shattering. The day of Vanessa's wedding dawned bright and clear, the September sun casting a golden glow over the Lakeside Country Club's manicured grounds. Harry stood at the bedroom window, adjusting his cufflinks as he watched the catering vans arrive. Behind him, Lorraine emerged from the bathroom in a cloud of expensive perfume, her figure flattered by the champagne-colored mother-of-the-bride dress that had cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payments. "You look lovely," Harry said, the compliment automatic despite the numbness he felt toward her now. Lorraine barely glanced at him. "Your tie is crooked." As she brushed past him without fixing it, Harry caught a whiff of her perfume, not the one he had given her for their anniversary, but something new, something he suspected Maxwell Pierce had bought her. The ceremony itself was flawless, a testament to Gloria Porter's meticulous planning and Harry's unlimited budget. Vanessa, radiant in a designer gown that had required 3 separate fittings, was the picture of the beautiful bride. Terence looked handsome but tense, his eyes occasionally darting to Harry with an unreadable expression. At the reception, Harry played his part perfectly, smiling for photographs, making a generous toast to the newlyweds, and chatting amiably with guests who had no idea of the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. It was during a lull in the festivities, as the band took a break and guests mingled around the bar, that Vernon Porter approached Harry, clapping a hand on his shoulder with unusual friendliness. "Harrison, my boy, could we have a word? In private." Vernon's breath smelled of expensive scotch, and his cheeks were flushed with more than just paternal pride. "Of course, Vernon," Harry replied smoothly, allowing himself to be guided toward an anteroom off the main reception hall. Inside, Gloria and Lorraine were waiting. Gloria was fidgeting with her pearl necklace, while Lorraine stood by the window, her back to the door. "What's this, a family meeting?" Harry asked, his tone light, but his guard up. Vernon closed the door behind them with a soft click. "Now that Vanessa's officially beginning her new life, we thought it was time to discuss the young couple's future." Harry raised an eyebrow. "I thought we'd already covered that with the wedding, the honeymoon in the Maldives, and the down payment on their condo." Gloria stepped forward, her smile tight. "That's all very generous, Harrison, but we were thinking of something more substantial." "We've been discussing it," Vernon continued, "and we think it would be appropriate for you to gift them your house on Lakeside Drive." The room fell silent. Harry stared at them, momentarily wondering if he had misheard. "My house," he repeated slowly. "The one I bought with my own money, before I even met Lorraine. It's just sitting there," Gloria said, waving a dismissive hand. "And with your business doing so well, you could easily buy another property. This would give Vanessa and Terence the perfect start." Harry looked at Lorraine, who still hadn't turned around. "And you agree with this?" Lorraine finally faced him, her expression cold. "It would be the right thing to do, Harry. For family." Harry laughed then, a short, harsh sound that made Gloria flinch. "This is what it's all been about, hasn't it? The wedding, the sudden interest in my business, the family dinners where you actually pretended to like me. You're after my house." Vernon's friendly demeanor evaporated. "Now see here, Kellen. This isn't about what you think. This is about providing for Vanessa's future." "No," Harry said firmly. "This is about bailing you out because you've mismanaged your finances so badly that you need my assets to stay afloat. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the second mortgage, Vernon? The credit card debt? The fact that your country club membership is 3 months in arrears?" Vernon's face darkened with rage. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been protecting myself," Harry corrected. "And the answer is no. The house is mine, and it's staying that way." Vernon lunged forward, grabbing a heavy metal cake stand from a nearby table. "You ungrateful, low-class bastard. After everything we've done for you." The stand connected with Harry's temple with a sickening crack. Pain exploded through his skull as he stumbled backward, his vision blurring. He collided with a table, sending glasses crashing to the floor as he fell. Through the haze of pain, Harry heard Gloria gasp and Lorraine, his wife of 8 years, laugh. Maybe that will knock some sense into him, Lorraine said. As Harry tried to push himself up, the door burst open. Terence stood there, still in his wedding tuxedo, his face a mask of shock. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, rushing to Harry's side. "Just a family disagreement," Vernon said dismissively. "Nothing for you to worry about, son." "I heard everything," Terence said, helping Harry to a sitting position. "I was looking for Vanessa and heard shouting. You attacked him because he wouldn't give you his house." Gloria stepped forward, her socialite smile firmly in place. "Terence, dear, you've misunderstood." Vernon was just. "I understand perfectly." Terence cut her off. "And it explains a lot about what I've been seeing in this family." He turned to Lorraine. "Including why you've been sneaking around with Maxwell Pierce for the past year." The room went deathly silent. "What did you say?" Harry asked, his voice rough with pain and shock. Terence looked at him with genuine regret. "I'm sorry, Mr. Kellen. I thought you knew. They've been meeting at the Harborview Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday. Vanessa knows too. She's the one who told me, said it was just how things work in our family." Harry's gaze locked with Lorraine's, who had gone pale. "Is this true?" For a moment, Lorraine seemed about to deny it. Then her expression hardened. "Max appreciates me in ways you never have. He understands the life I deserve." "The life you deserve," Harry repeated, a cold clarity washing over him. "And what life is that, Lorraine? One funded by other people's money? One where loyalty means nothing?" "Don't you dare judge me," Lorraine hissed. 8 years I've put up with your blue-collar mentality, your embarrassing lack of refinement. Max is twice the man you'll ever be." Harry wiped blood from his temple, a strange calm settling over him. "Is that so? And does Max know about the prenup he'll need to sign? The one that specifies you get nothing if you're caught cheating? The one with the photographic evidence clause?" Lorraine's expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" Harry smiled, and there was something in that smile that made even Vernon take a step back. "Check your contract, Lorraine. Page 12, paragraph 4. I had a feeling, even back then." "You're bluffing," she whispered, but uncertainty clouded her eyes. "Am I?" Harry stood up, steadier now despite the pounding in his head. "I guess we'll find out. But one thing's certain, you're not getting my house. None of you are." Vernon, his face purple with rage, stepped forward again. "Now you listen here." "No, you listen," Harry cut him off. "This charade is over. I've subsidized your family's lifestyle, your debts, and your delusions of grandeur for the last time. I'm done." He turned to leave, then paused, looking back at Terence. "I'm sorry about all this. Vanessa doesn't deserve you." As Harry pushed past Vernon toward the door, he heard Gloria's panicked voice. "Vernon, stop him. We need that house." Harry didn't look back. He had seen enough, heard enough. The family he had tried so hard to be part of had never seen him as anything more than a means to an end. As he walked through the reception hall, blood trickling down his temple, guests stared in shock. Vanessa, dancing with one of the groomsmen, caught his eye across the room. There was no surprise in her expression, only cold calculation as she assessed what this meant for her future plans. Harry nodded at her once, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than farewell, then continued toward the exit. In the parking lot, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Natalie? It's Harrison Kellen. I need your services." "No, not construction this time. Something more investigative." As he slid into his car, Harry caught sight of his reflection in the rearview mirror, bloodied, betrayed, but with a new resolve in his eyes. The man who drove away from his stepdaughter's wedding was not the same man who had arrived that morning. That man had died in the anteroom, surrounded by the people who had pretended to be his family. What remained was something harder, something dangerous. And Harrison Kellen was just getting started. Chapter 4. Gathering the Pieces. 3 days after the wedding, Harry sat in the sparsely furnished living room of his newly rented downtown apartment, a glass of whiskey in one hand and an ice pack pressed to his temple with the other. The cut had required 7 stitches, and the concussion meant he'd been advised to take it easy for a few days, advice that Harry had no intention of following. Across from him, Natalie Rivera flipped through the file she had compiled with remarkable speed. At 42, Natalie was a former police detective turned private investigator who had helped Harry vet potential business partners years before. She was efficient, discreet, and, most importantly, utterly merciless when it came to uncovering the truth. So, to summarize, she said, her dark eyes scanning her notes, your wife has been having an affair with Maxwell Pierce for at least a year, possibly longer. Your father-in-law assaulted you with a potentially deadly weapon because you wouldn't sign over your house to them. And your stepdaughter was aware of at least some of this deception. Harry took a long swallow of whiskey, welcoming the burn. That about covers it. And what exactly do you want me to do with this information, Harry? Natalie asked, though her slight smile suggested she already knew. I want everything, Harry said simply. Every detail of Lorraine and Max's affair. Every financial secret Vernon's been hiding. Every skeleton in the Porter family closet. I want ammunition. Natalie nodded, making a note. And the goal? Harry's expression darkened. They tried to take everything from me, Nat. My dignity, my home, nearly my life. I'm going to return the favor. Revenge is a luxury, Harry, Natalie warned. It costs more than most people can afford. I can afford it, Harry replied. And I'm willing to pay whatever price it takes. Over the next 2 weeks, Harry divided his time between running his business and planning his revenge. Lorraine had tried calling him repeatedly after the wedding, her messages evolving from angry demands to tearful pleas as the reality of the prenuptial agreement sank in. Harry ignored them all. Instead, he met with his lawyer, Bradley Morrison, a shrewd attorney who had represented him since the early days of his construction business. The prenup is ironclad, Bradley confirmed, pushing his glasses up his nose as he reviewed the document. If you can prove infidelity, which, based on Ms. Rivera's preliminary findings, you can, Lorraine walks away with nothing but her personal possessions and the car titled in her name. And the house? Harry asked, though he already knew the answer. 100% yours. They can't touch it. Harry nodded, satisfied. File the divorce papers immediately, but don't serve them yet. I want to control the timing. While the legal groundwork was being laid, Natalie was producing results that exceeded even Harry's expectations. Maxwell Pierce, it turned out, was not just Vernon Porter's business partner, but also his financial savior. The bank they jointly owned had been teetering on the edge of insolvency for years, kept afloat only by Pierce's connections to several wealthy overseas investors. Those investors are interesting, Natalie said during one of their briefings. Very private, very particular about where their money goes. The kind of people who don't like public scandals. Even more intriguing was what Natalie uncovered about Vanessa. The story of her father's death, the one Lorraine had told with teary eyes about a tragic car accident when Vanessa was a child, was a fabrication. Brandon Kent, Vanessa's biological father, was very much alive and living in Seattle, having been essentially bought off by Vernon Porter when Lorraine became pregnant. He was a grad student. She was a debutante, Natalie explained. The Porters couldn't have their daughter married to a nobody, so they paid him to disappear and created the dead husband story to preserve Lorraine's reputation. Harry absorbed this information with a cold detachment that would have frightened him just weeks before. Does Vanessa know? Based on the emails I found, yes, Natalie replied. She's been in contact with him secretly for the past 2 years. The final piece fell into place when Leo called Harry late one evening. Harry, you need to hear this, Leo said, his voice tense. Pierce was at the club tonight, drunk as a skunk and mouthing off about how he's finally going to get Vernon Porter off his back. Something about using the new family asset as collateral for a major deal with his investors. The new family asset, Harry repeated. My house. That's what it sounds like, Leo confirmed. Pierce said once they had the deed, he'd be able to leverage it to secure at least 3 times its value. Vernon's been promising it to him for months. Harry thanked his friend and ended the call, the final pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. It had never been about giving Vanessa and Terrence a good start. It had been about using his house to save Vernon and Pierce's failing bank, likely through some creative and illegal financial maneuvering. The next morning, Harry received a call from an unknown number. It was Terrence. Mr. Kellen, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I wanted to check if you're all right, the young man said awkwardly. What happened at the wedding? It wasn't right. I appreciate the concern, Terrence, Harry replied, genuinely touched by the gesture. How's married life treating you? There was a pause. Actually, sir, The honeymoon was... Well, Vanessa and I had a major fight when I confronted her about what I overheard. We're staying in separate rooms right now. Harry hadn't expected that. I'm sorry to hear it. What are you going to do? I'm not sure, Terrence admitted. But I know I can't just pretend everything's normal. Vanessa keeps telling me to forget what I saw, that it's just how her family handles things. But I can't accept that. An idea began to form in Harry's mind. Terrence, would you be willing to meet me for coffee tomorrow? There are some things you should know before you make any decisions about your future with the Porters. After arranging the meeting, Harry called Natalie. I need everything you've got on the Porters and Pierce organized and ready by tomorrow morning. It's time to move to the next phase. You sure about this, Harry? Natalie asked. Once you start this, there's no going back. Harry thought of Lorraine's laughter as he lay bleeding on the floor, of Vernon's rage when he wouldn't surrender what was rightfully his, of the years he'd spent trying to earn the approval of people who had only ever seen him as a resource to be exploited. I'm sure, he said, his voice hardening. It's time they learned what it means to betray Harrison Kellen. Chapter 5. The First Domino. The coffee shop where Harry met Terrence was a small, independent place downtown, far from the upscale establishments the Porters frequented. Harry arrived early, selecting a corner table that afforded privacy while allowing him to watch the door. Terrence arrived precisely on time, looking haggard and sleep-deprived in rumpled khakis and an untucked Oxford shirt, a far cry from the polished groom of 2 weeks prior. Thank you for meeting me, Harry said, sliding a coffee across the table as Terrence sat down. Terrence accepted it gratefully. Honestly, Mr. Kellen, I didn't know who else to talk to. Vanessa's family has closed ranks. They're telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown at the wedding, that you attacked Vernon and he was just defending himself. Harry wasn't surprised. And what does Vanessa say? She says I should mind my own business, Terrence replied, his voice tight with frustration. That families have complicated dynamics, and I need to learn to navigate them if I want to be part of theirs. And do you want to be part of their family? Terrence stared into his coffee. I thought I knew who I was marrying. Now, I'm not so sure. Harry nodded, then slid a thin folder across the table. Before you make any decisions, there are some things you should see. The folder contained a carefully curated selection of Natalie's findings, photographs of Lorraine and Maxwell Pierce entering and leaving the Harborview Hotel on multiple occasions, financial documents showing Vernon Porter's mounting debts, and, most damning of all, emails between Vanessa and her biological father, Brandon Kent. Terrence's hands trembled as he read through the materials. This can't be real, he whispered. Vanessa told me her father died when she was 6. That's the story the Porters created, Harry explained gently. The truth is, they paid him off to disappear when Lorraine got pregnant. They couldn't accept their daughter being tied to someone they considered beneath them. Terrence looked up, his expression stricken. Just like they don't accept you. Just like that, Harry agreed. And this affair, Lorraine and Pierce. Terrence shook his head in disbelief. Vanessa knew? All this time. According to what we found, yes. She's known for at least 6 months. Terrence pushed the folder away, as if physically distancing himself from its contents could somehow make them less true. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know what you've married into, Harry said simply. And because I think you might be the only person in that family with a conscience. What are you planning to do with all this? Harry took a measured sip of his coffee. I'm going to make sure they face consequences for their actions. All of them. Terrence studied him for a long moment. Including Vanessa? Everyone makes choices, Terrence. Vanessa chose to be complicit in her family's schemes. Terrence looked torn, his loyalty to his new wife battling with his innate sense of right and wrong. I need some time to think about all this. Take all the time you need, Harry said, rising from the table. But remember, the Porters aren't just manipulating me. They're manipulating you too. They see you as they see me, a resource to be used, not a person to be respected. As Terrence left with the folder, Harry knew he had planted the first seed of doubt. The first domino was set to fall. The next phase of Harry's plan required more direct action. Using the intelligence Natalie had gathered about Maxwell Pierce's overseas investors, Harry arranged a meeting with the most prominent among them, Dmitry Volkov, a Russian businessman with a reputation for ruthlessness that matched Harry's newfound resolve. The meeting took place at Volkov's suite at the Four Seasons, with only Natalie present as Harry's advisor. Volkov, a bear of a man with a shaved head and penetrating blue eyes, cut straight to the point. Mr. Kellen, your message mentioned information about Maxwell Pierce that would be of interest to me. I am listening. Harry slid across a dossier much thicker than the one he had shown Terence. Mr. Pierce has been misrepresenting the collateral for your investments in Porter Pierce Banking. The prime real estate assets he's been claiming as security are largely fictional, including a property that belongs to me that he has no claim to. Volkov's expression remained impassive as he leafed through the documents, but a slight tightening around his eyes betrayed his anger. This is concerning, if true. Every document in that file is authenticated, Natalie interjected. Financial records, property deeds, even recordings of Pierce discussing how he plans to use Mr. Kellen's property as collateral without his knowledge or consent. Volkov closed the file with deliberate calm. What is it you want, Mr. Kellen? Money. Harry shook his head. I don't want your money. What I want is for Pierce to experience what it feels like when someone takes what's yours without permission. I want him to lose everything he values. A slow smile spread across Volkov's face. I understand vendettas, Mr. Kellen. They are, how do you say, a universal language. He picked up his phone. I will need to verify these documents, but if they are as you say, Mr. Pierce will find his funding suddenly evaporated. That's all I ask, Harry said, standing to leave. Oh, and Mr. Volkov, I would appreciate if this conversation remained between us. I wouldn't want Pierce to know who provided this information just yet. Volkov nodded, an understanding passing between the two men. Of course, the best revenge, after all, is the one your enemy never sees coming. The following week, Harry monitored the situation from a distance, his anticipation building as he waited for the first visible signs that his plan was working. They came sooner than expected. Leo called on Thursday evening, excitement evident in his voice. Harry, you won't believe what just happened at the club. Pierce showed up for his regular dinner meeting with those foreign investors of his, but they never arrived. The man was sweating bullets, making call after call. Then Vernon Porter burst in, looking like he was about to have a heart attack. What happened? Harry asked, savoring the image. They had a shouting match right in the middle of the dining room. Porter was demanding to know what Pierce had done, saying something about funding being pulled and investors backing out. Pierce was yelling back that it wasn't his fault, that someone must have sabotaged them. Did they mention any names? Mine specifically? Harry asked. No, they seemed completely clueless about who might be behind it, Leo assured him. But Harry, there's more. When Porter really lost it, he started threatening Pierce, saying if he didn't fix this, he'd tell Lorraine everything. Pierce went white as a sheet and dragged Vernon outside after that. Harry frowned. Tell Lorraine what? I don't know, but it seemed big. Like, bigger than just the affair kind of big. Harry thanked Leo and immediately called Natalie. We need to dig deeper on Pierce. There's something else going on that we're missing, something Vernon could use as leverage against him. Find out what it is. Phase 1 of his plan was unfolding perfectly. The Porters' financial house of cards was beginning to collapse, and the first cracks in the alliance between Vernon and Maxwell were showing. But Harry knew better than to celebrate prematurely. This was just the beginning. The next day, Terence called. I've been thinking about what you showed me, he said without preamble. And I confronted Vanessa about her real father last night. How did that go? Harry asked, genuinely curious. Terence's voice cracked. She didn't even deny it. Said it was none of my business, and that if I was going to be part of their family, I needed to accept that they do things differently. When I pressed her, she said that you were never supposed to find out about their plans for the house, that it was just a transfer of assets that was better for everyone. I'm sorry, Terence, Harry said, and he meant it. The young man deserved better. Don't be, Terence replied, a new resolve in his voice. I've made my decision. I want out of this marriage, and I want to help you. Whatever you're planning, I want in. Harry hadn't expected this level of commitment from Terence, but he recognized the anger of a man who had been deceived and manipulated, the same anger that had been driving him since the wedding. Are you sure about this? These are powerful people, Terence. They won't take betrayal lightly. Neither do I, Terence replied firmly. And they betrayed me first. Harry felt a moment of kinship with the younger man. All right, meet me at my office tomorrow morning. We have plans to make. As he hung up, Harry caught sight of his reflection in the window, The cut on his temple had healed to an angry red line, a permanent reminder of Vernon's violence and Lorraine's betrayal. But there was something else in his reflection too, a cold determination that hadn't been there before. The Porters had created this version of Harrison Kellen. Now they would have to deal with him. Chapter 6. Pressure Points. By the end of the third week after the wedding, the first real consequences of Harry's machinations became visible to the outside world. Porter Pierce Banking announced an organizational restructuring that industry insiders recognized immediately as a desperate attempt to stem a sudden financial crisis. Harry read the news with satisfaction from his office, where he had been meeting regularly with Terence to coordinate their efforts. The younger man had proven to be an unexpected asset. His legal background and inside knowledge of the Porter family dynamics provided insights that even Natalie's thorough investigation had missed. Vernon will be in full panic mode by now, Terence observed, reviewing the bank's press release. The annual audit is scheduled for next month, and with Volkov's investment pulled, they won't be able to cover up the discrepancies any longer. Harry nodded, spinning a pen between his fingers thoughtfully. And how is Vanessa taking your evolution? Terence's expression hardened. I told her I needed space to think about our future. She's staying with Lorraine at your house while I'm at the condo. She calls every day, alternating between tears and threats. Threats, mostly financial, reminding me that her family funded my law school, that they can make sure I never practice in this city again. Terence shrugged. Empty threats, really. I've already lined up a position with a firm in Chicago, starting next month. Harry raised an eyebrow. You're leaving town? Once this is done, yes, Terence confirmed. There's nothing for me here anymore. Harry understood the sentiment all too well. Before you go, there's something specific I need your help with. You mentioned that Vernon and Maxwell had some kind of leverage over each other, something Vernon threatened to tell Lorraine. Natalie's been digging, but she hasn't found anything concrete yet. Terence hesitated, then reached for his phone. I might know what it is. At the rehearsal dinner, I overheard Vernon and Maxwell arguing in the coat room. Vernon said something about the agreement from the beginning and how Lorraine was supposed to be temporary. Maxwell replied that things had changed and that he had genuine feelings now. Harry frowned, trying to make sense of the cryptic exchange. That sounds like Pierce's relationship with Lorraine wasn't just an affair, Terence finished. Like it was planned for some reason, but then got complicated because he actually fell for her. The implication hung in the air between them, a new and disturbing piece of the puzzle. I didn't think much of it at the time, Terence continued. But after everything else, it seems significant. It is, Harry agreed, his mind racing. Very significant. Later that day, Harry met with Natalie at her office, a Spartan space in a converted warehouse downtown. I need you to focus your investigation on any connection between Lorraine and Maxwell Pierce that predates their affair, he instructed. Business relationships, social connections, anything. Natalie made a note. Any particular reason? A hunch, Harry replied. I think their affair might not be as spontaneous as we assumed. It might have been engineered, possibly by Vernon himself, for some purpose we haven't uncovered yet. Natalie looked skeptical but nodded. I'll see what I can find. In the meantime, I've got something else you should see. She pulled up a series of photographs on her computer, surveillance shots of Maxwell Pierce entering an upscale apartment building downtown, using a key card to access a private elevator. This building is owned by a shell company that traces back to Pierce, Natalie explained. He visits 3 times a week, always on the same days, always staying exactly 2 hours. His love nest with Lorraine? Harry guessed. That's what I thought at first, Natalie said, clicking to the next series of photos. But Lorraine has never been seen entering or leaving this building. These, however, were taken with a telephoto lens through the penthouse window. The images showed Pierce in what appeared to be a lavishly furnished apartment, talking with a striking blonde woman whose face was partially visible in several shots. Who is she? Harry asked, leaning closer to the screen. Her name is Diana Mercer, Natalie replied. And here's where it gets interesting. She's the daughter of Trent Mercer, the state banking commissioner. Harry sat back, the implications clear. The man who oversees all banking regulations and investigations in the state. Exactly. And these photos of them together go back almost 3 years, well before Pierce's affair with Lorraine began. Harry absorbed this information, the pieces rearranging themselves in his mind. So Pierce has been maintaining a relationship with the banking commissioner's daughter, potentially to influence banking oversight, while simultaneously carrying on an affair with his business partner's daughter. It gets better, Natalie said, pulling up another file. Diana Mercer got engaged 6 months ago to Congressman Robert Winters, who sits on the House Financial Services Committee. Jesus, Harry muttered. Pierce has been playing a long game. Sexual relationships with women connected to both state and federal financial regulatory bodies. And neither woman knows about the other, Natalie confirmed. At least, that's what my sources indicate. Harry stood, pacing the small office as he processed this new information. This changes things. Pierce isn't just a cheating business partner. He's systemically using sexual relationships to protect his business interests. And somehow, Vernon knows about it. Which might explain why he was so desperate to get your house, Natalie suggested. If the bank is in trouble, and their usual channels of regulatory protection are at risk of being exposed, they needed a clean, valuable asset they could leverage quickly, Harry finished. And I was the closest target. He stopped pacing, a new plan forming in his mind. This is it, Nat. This is our leverage. Not just against Pierce, but against all of them. What are you thinking? Natalie asked, recognizing the dangerous glint in his eye. I'm thinking it's time for a family reunion, Harry replied. One where all the secrets come out at once. He outlined his plan to Natalie, who listened with growing concern. This is risky, Harry, she warned when he had finished. You're talking about taking on not just the Porters and Pierce, but potentially people with serious political connections. If this backfires, it won't, Harry assured her with cold confidence. Because we're going to make sure everyone involved has more to lose by fighting us than by turning on each other. The next day, Harry took the most overt step yet in his campaign against the Porters. He had divorce papers served to Lorraine at the country club during her weekly lunch with Gloria, ensuring maximum public embarrassment. The papers included not just the standard divorce filing, but also detailed evidence of her affair with Maxwell Pierce, along with notice that Harry was invoking the infidelity clause in their prenuptial agreement. The message was clear: Lorraine would walk away with nothing. Her response came within hours, a hysterical phone call that Harry let go to voicemail, followed by a barrage of texts alternating between threats and pleas. He ignored them all, knowing that each unanswered message would only increase her desperation. Vernon's reaction was more direct. He showed up at Harry's office unannounced, his face flushed with rage. You think you can humiliate my daughter like this? He demanded as he barged past Harry's assistant. You're nothing, Kellen. Nothing. We made you, and we can destroy you just as easily. Harry remained seated behind his desk, unnervingly calm in the face of Vernon's fury. Please, have a seat, Vernon. Since you've gone to the trouble of coming all this way, we might as well talk. Vernon remained standing, his hands balled into fists. There's nothing to talk about. You will withdraw those divorce papers and the ridiculous accusations against Lorraine, or what? Harry interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. You'll hit me with another cake stand? Try to steal my house again? Or perhaps you'll tell me more about your arrangement with Maxwell Pierce regarding your daughter? That stopped Vernon cold. What did you say? I know everything, Vernon, Harry said simply. About the bank's financial troubles. About Pierce's relationship with Diana Mercer. About how you encouraged Lorraine's affair to secure Pierce's continued support of your failing business. Vernon sank slowly into the chair opposite Harry's desk, the color draining from his face. That's absurd. You can't prove any of that. Harry smiled thinly. Can't I? What would Lorraine say if she knew you orchestrated her affair with Pierce? What would Gloria say? What would Pierce's other lover say? What would the banking commissioner say? You're bluffing, Vernon insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Harry opened a drawer and removed a thick folder, placing it on the desk between them. This contains everything I know about you, Vernon. About your finances, your schemes, your lies. I have copies ready to be delivered to Lorraine, to Gloria, to the banking commissioner, to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, and to several journalists I know. One word from me, and your life as you know it is over. Vernon stared at the folder, sweat beading on his forehead. What do you want? I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything, Harry replied coldly. Just as you tried to do to me. But unlike you, I'm giving you a choice. What choice? Convince Pierce to confess his relationship with Diana Mercer to Lorraine in person, with you present. Do it within 48 hours, record it as proof, and bring the recording to me. If you do that, this folder and all its copies will be destroyed. Vernon's eyes narrowed in suspicion. And if I refuse? Harry leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Then I destroy you, your reputation, your business, and your family name, all at once. And I'll enjoy doing it. Vernon stared at him, searching for any sign of bluff or weakness. Finding none, he slowly nodded. 48 hours. 48 hours, Harry confirmed. And Vernon? Don't try to warn Pierce in advance. I have people watching both of you. If you tip him off, the deal is void. After Vernon left, looking considerably older than when he had arrived, Harry called Terence. It's done, he said simply. Vernon took the bait. Now we wait. And if he doesn't deliver? Terence asked. Harry's gaze drifted to the painting on his office wall, a stark landscape of a lightning storm over mountains that had always reminded him of the power of natural forces to reshape the world. Then we unleash the storm, he replied. All of it, all at once. As he ended the call, Harry felt a moment of doubt, not about his course of action, but about what would remain when the dust settled. He had built his life on solid foundations, on hard work and integrity. The revenge he was pursuing offered satisfaction, but at what cost to those values? He pushed the thought aside. The Porters and Pierce had chosen this path when they decided to betray him. Now they would face the consequences of that choice, whatever they might be. The clock was ticking. Chapter 7. The Trap Closes. Exactly 47 hours after Vernon Porter left Harry's office, Natalie's phone pinged with an alert. The surveillance system they had placed near Vernon's house had captured him leaving in a hurry, a small briefcase clutched in his hand. He's on the move, Natalie reported, calling Harry immediately. Heading downtown, likely to your office. Harry, who had been expecting this call, checked his watch. Right on time. Is Terence in position? Yes, Natalie confirmed. He's waiting at the service entrance as planned, with the documents you prepared. Perfect, Harry replied, adjusting his tie as he looked out the window of his corner office. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city, a fitting metaphor for the darkness he was about to bring to the Porter family. Let's finish this. Vernon arrived 20 minutes later, looking haggard and unervingly sober compared to his usual ruddy-faced bluster. Harry's assistant showed him in without comment, closing the door behind him. You have it, Harry asked without preamble. Vernon placed a small USB drive on the desk between them. It's all there, just as you asked. Harry connected the drive to his computer and opened the video file it contained. The footage was shot in what appeared to be Vernon's study, with both Vernon and Maxwell Pierce clearly visible. Lorraine sat between them, her expression cycling from confusion to disbelief to rage as Pierce confessed to his ongoing relationship with Diana Mercer. 3 years. Lorraine's voice cracked on the recording. You've been with her for 3 years? While telling me we had something special. Pierce looked genuinely distressed, his usual polished demeanor crumbling. Lorraine, you have to understand. It started as a business arrangement. Diana's father. A business arrangement? Lorraine interrupted, her voice rising. Is that what I was too? Another business arrangement. The camera caught Vernon, shifting uncomfortably at this question. Pierce glanced at Vernon, then back to Lorraine. That's complicated. Complicated. Lorraine stood abruptly. What does that mean? What aren't you telling me? The video ended there, freezing on Lorraine's face contorted with anger and betrayal. Harry looked up at Vernon. This isn't the complete conversation. Vernon shifted in his seat. That's all you asked for. Proof that Pierce confessed to Lorraine about Diana Mercer. That's what I delivered. What happened after the recording stopped? Harry asked, though he could guess. Vernon's gaze dropped to his hands. Lorraine, she figured it out. About our arrangement. About how I encouraged Pierce to pursue her when the bank first started having troubles. She didn't take it well. I imagine not, Harry said dryly. Finding out your father pimped you out to save his business would be rather upsetting. Vernon flinched at the crude but accurate description. It wasn't like that. It was just business. Networking. People do it all the time. Not with their daughters, Vernon. Harry closed the laptop with deliberate care. So, where's Lorraine now? At a hotel. She's not speaking to either of us. Harry nodded, unsurprised. And the folder? All the evidence you have on me. Vernon reached into his jacket and removed a thick envelope. It's yours. All of it. Now destroy those copies as you promised. Harry took the envelope, weighing it in his hand. You know, Vernon, there's something I've been wondering since this all began. Why me? Of all the wealthy men in this city, why target me for your schemes? Vernon hesitated, then answered with unexpected honesty. Because you were an outsider. No connections to the financial community, no old family ties to protect you. You were self-made, which meant you had no one to warn you about people like us. The admission hung in the air between them, a testament to the calculated cruelty that had guided the porter's actions. I see, Harry said finally. Well, I appreciate your candor. He pressed the intercom on his desk. Please send Mr. Sullivan, Indiana. Vernon's head snapped up. Sullivan? Terrence is here. The door opened, and Terrence walked in, carrying a leather portfolio. His expression was coldly professional as he nodded to Vernon without speaking. Terrence has been working with me, Harry explained casually. Ever since your family tried to destroy both of us. Vernon stood, his face flushing with renewed anger. You treacherous little. Careful, Vernon, Harry cut him off. Remember your position here. Vernon subsided, glaring at his son-in-law. What is this? I gave you what you wanted. We had a deal. We did, Harry agreed. And I'm keeping my end. Terrence isn't here for you. He's here for what comes next. Which is? Harry smiled thinly. Justice. At Harry's nod, Terrence placed the portfolio on the desk and opened it, revealing a stack of legal documents. These are formal complaints being filed with the State Banking Commission, the SEC, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. He explained in a clipped, professional tone. They detail the financial irregularities at Porter Pierce Banking, including the misrepresentation of assets to investors and the systematic use of personal relationships to evade regulatory oversight. Vernon's face went ashen. You can't do this. We had an agreement. You said you'd destroy the evidence if I got you the recording. And I will destroy the evidence I have, Harry assured him. But these aren't copies of my evidence, Vernon. These are entirely new filings, based on information Terrence has provided as a whistleblower. Information he obtained legally as your daughter's husband, with access to family financial documents. Vernon turned to Terrence, desperation in his eyes. You can't testify against your own wife's family. There are spousal protections, legal. I filed for divorce this morning. Terrence interrupted flatly. And as a lawyer myself, I'm well aware of what evidence is admissible and what isn't. Vernon collapsed back into his chair, the full weight of the trap he had walked into finally becoming clear. You planned this. All of it. From the beginning. Not from the beginning, Harry corrected him. I didn't plan for you to assault me at the wedding. I didn't plan for you to try to steal my house. I didn't plan for my wife to betray me with your business partner. Those were your choices. I'm just ensuring you face the consequences of those choices. Why not just turn us in directly? Vernon asked, a hint of genuine curiosity breaking through his despair. Why this elaborate setup? Because I wanted you to understand what it feels like to be manipulated, Harry replied. To have your trust used against you. To realize too late that you've been nothing but a pawn in someone else's game. The room fell silent as Vernon absorbed this, his shoulders slumping in defeat. What happens now? He finally asked. Harry stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Now you go home to what's left of your family. You warn Pierce if you want to. It won't make any difference. The formal complaints will be filed tomorrow morning. After that, it's in the hands of the authorities. And Lorraine? Vernon asked, his voice barely audible. What about her? Harry replied coldly. She made her choices too. As Vernon trudged toward the door, a broken shadow of his former imperious self, he paused with his hand on the knob. You know, Kellen, I didn't think you had this in you. This, ruthlessness. Harry met his gaze steadily. Neither did I, Vernon. I guess we both learned something. After Vernon left, Terrence remained, studying Harry with a mix of admiration and unease. That went exactly as you predicted. People like Vernon are predictable, Harry replied, returning to his desk. They'll always take what looks like the easiest way out, even when it's actually a trap. The authorities will move quickly once they have these filings, Terrence noted, gesturing to the portfolio. The Banking Commission especially. Mercer will want to distance himself from the scandal given his daughter's involvement. Harry nodded, which is why the final phase needs to happen tonight, before they have time to circle the wagons or destroy evidence. Terence hesitated. Are you sure about this last part? It's excessive, even after everything they've done. They tried to take everything from me, Harry reminded him, his voice hardening. My home, my marriage, my dignity. They would have left me with nothing if they could. Why should I show them mercy they never intended to show me? Terence had no answer for that. Go home, Terence, Harry said, his tone softening slightly. Pack what you need for Chicago. Once this is done, you'll want to be far away from the fallout. After Terence left, Harry sat alone in his office as darkness fell over the city. He should have felt triumphant with his plan unfolding perfectly, but instead found himself oddly hollow. The Porters and Pierce would pay for their betrayal. That satisfaction was genuine. But the man he had become in pursuit of that vengeance was someone he barely recognized. His phone buzzed with a message from Natalie. Package delivered to all specified recipients. News outlets already following up. It's happening. The package was a carefully edited dossier containing enough evidence of Porter Pierce Banking's irregularities to pique the interest of financial reporters, but not enough to constitute illegal leaking of confidential information. By morning, the questions would begin. By afternoon, with the formal complaints filed, the investigation would be public. Harry texted back a simple "thank you" and stood, gathering his coat. There was one piece of unfinished business remaining, the most personal confrontation of all. Lorraine Kellen was staying at the Parkview Hotel downtown, according to Natalie's intelligence. As Harry drove there, he rehearsed what he would say, what he would reveal, how he would finally close this chapter of his life. When he knocked on the door of room 712, however, all his prepared words evaporated. Lorraine opened the door, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, her normally perfect appearance disheveled. For a moment, they just stared at each other, 8 years of history stretching between them like a chasm. Harry, she finally said, her voice hoarse. I've been trying to call you. I know, he replied simply. May I come in? She stepped aside, allowing him to enter the bland hotel room that now served as her temporary sanctuary. Expensive clothes were strewn across the bed, drawers left open in disarray. I guess you've heard, she said, sitting heavily on the edge of the bed. About Max. About my father's arrangement. I've known for some time, Harry admitted. It's why I had divorce papers served. Lorraine laughed bitterly. Of course you knew. You always were more perceptive than they gave you credit for. She looked up at him, her mascara smudged beneath her eyes. Did you know from the beginning? About me? Harry shook his head. No. I thought what we had was real, at least at first. It was, Lorraine insisted, a flash of the old fire returning to her eyes. In the beginning, it was real. But then what? Harry prompted when she trailed off. Then it got complicated. The bank was in trouble. My father was desperate. Max suggested that if we. She couldn't finish the sentence. If you slept with him, he'd help save your father's bank, Harry completed for her. Lorraine nodded, her gaze dropping to her hands. It was just supposed to be a brief thing. An arrangement. But then it became more. Or I thought it did. Until you found out about Diana Mercer. Yes. Lorraine's voice was barely audible. Until I found out I was just another pawn in Max's game. Just like my father tried to make me a pawn in his. Harry watched her, the woman he had once loved, now broken by the same schemes she had participated in. He should have felt satisfaction seeing her brought so low, but instead found himself pitying her, even as he remained resolute about what needed to be done. I'm not here to gloat, Lorraine, he said finally. I'm here to tell you what's coming. She looked up, confusion replacing the self-pity in her expression. What do you mean? Tomorrow morning, formal complaints will be filed against Porter Pierce Banking, your father, and Maxwell Pierce. By afternoon, the story will be in every financial news outlet in the country. By evening, federal agents will likely be executing search warrants. Lorraine's face drained of color. You're behind this? I am, Harry confirmed without remorse. Your father and Pierce tried to destroy me. They're about to discover I'm not as easily broken as they thought. What about me? Lorraine asked, a tremor in her voice. Am I part of this retribution? Harry studied her for a long moment. You laughed, Lorraine. When your father struck me, when I was bleeding on the floor, you laughed. That's something I can't forget or forgive. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was scared, confused. I didn't know what to do. You knew exactly what you were doing. Harry countered, his voice steady. You chose your family's schemes over our marriage long before that moment. The divorce will proceed as filed. You'll get nothing from our time together except what you brought into it. Your fate beyond that depends on how much you knew about the bank's illegal activities. I didn't know anything about the bank, Lorraine insisted desperately. That was all my father and Max. Then you have nothing to worry about, Harry replied, though his tone suggested he didn't entirely believe her. Except how you'll support yourself once this is all over. The reality of her situation seemed to crash over Lorraine all at once. No husband, no lover, no family fortune to fall back on. Harry, please, she whispered. We can work something out. We could try again. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but… No. The single word cut through her plea like a blade. What we had is dead. You killed it. I'm not here to negotiate or reconcile. I'm here to inform you of what's coming so you can prepare yourself. He turned to leave, but Lorraine rushed forward, grabbing his arm. Harry, wait. You can't just walk away. 8 years. 8 years of lies, he finished, gently but firmly removing her hand from his arm. Goodbye, Lorraine. As he reached the door, her voice stopped him one last time. You've changed, Harry. The man I married would never have done something like this. Harry looked back at her, his expression impassive. The man you married died at your daughter's wedding. You helped kill him. He opened the door. The man I am now is the one you and your family created. Remember that when you're picking up the pieces. The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt like the final period on the sentence of their marriage. Outside in the corridor, Harry took a deep breath, a complex mixture of emotions washing through him. Satisfaction, regret, and an unexpected sense of liberation. The confrontation with Lorraine had been necessary, not just for his revenge, but for his own closure. As he drove home through the darkened city streets, he received another text from Natalie. Final phase complete. All evidence delivered. No going back now. Good, he replied simply. Tomorrow, the storm would break. Tomorrow, the price of betrayal would be paid in full. Chapter 8. The Fall. The next morning, Harrison Kellen awoke to the sound of his phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. The screen was filled with notifications, missed calls, text messages, news alerts. The storm had arrived even earlier than he had anticipated. The first call he returned was to Leo. It's everywhere, Harry, his friend said without preamble. Porter Pierce banking under federal investigation. Maxwell Pierce questioned about improper relationships with regulatory officials. Vernon Porter named in complaints about financial fraud. It's all over the financial news. Any mention of my name? Harry asked, scanning the headlines on his tablet as they spoke. Nothing direct, Leo confirmed. Just references to whistleblower information and internal sources. You've kept yourself clean, just like you planned. For now, Harry replied. Let's see how long that lasts once they start looking for someone to blame. The second call was from Natalie, her tone professionally detached despite the chaos unfolding. FBI agents arrived at Porter Pierce headquarters 30 minutes ago with search warrants. Pierce was already there. They're interviewing him now. Vernon was picked up at his home. Gloria is reportedly hysterical, calling everyone she knows with any legal or political connections. And Lorraine? Harry couldn't help asking. A brief pause. Still at the hotel. No law enforcement contact yet. Harry nodded to himself. Keep me posted on any developments. And Natalie? Thank you. For everything. It's my job, Harry, she replied simply. But he could hear the unspoken question in her voice. Was it worth it? He wasn't sure he had an answer yet. By mid-morning, Harry had received calls from 3 different attorneys representing Vernon, Pierce, and Porter Pierce banking respectively, all making the same basic inquiry. What would it take for Harry to intervene, to call off the dogs, to help mitigate the growing disaster? To each, he gave the same response. I have no control over federal investigations. I suggest your clients cooperate fully and prepare for the consequences of their actions. Around noon, Harry received a call from an unknown number. It was Vanessa. You bastard, she hissed without introduction. You've destroyed my family. Hello, Vanessa, Harry replied calmly. Your family destroyed themselves. I just made sure they couldn't keep it hidden. Do you have any idea what you've done? My father is being treated like a criminal. My mother is falling apart. Our family name is being dragged through the mud. Your father is a criminal, Harry corrected her. And your mother made her choices. As for the family name, Perhaps you should have considered its value before you all conspired to defraud me. Vanessa's voice turned suddenly calculating. What do you want, Harry? Money? Is that it? Name your price. Harry laughed, genuinely amused by her desperate attempt at negotiation. You don't have anything I want, Vanessa. Not anymore. Terence filed for divorce, she said, her tone accusatory. Was that your doing too? Terence made his own decisions after learning the truth about your family. About how you knew of your mother's affair and said nothing. About how you were complicit in the attempt to steal my house. I was protecting my family, Vanessa insisted. Something you clearly know nothing about. No, Vanessa. You were protecting yourself and your lifestyle, just like your parents were. The difference is they at least had the conviction of their greed. You just followed along like the spoiled child you've always been. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. You'll regret this, Harry. When this is all over, when the dust settles, you'll be all alone. Was revenge really worth losing everything else? The question hit closer to home than Harry cared to admit, but his resolve didn't waver. Goodbye, Vanessa. I suggest you start figuring out how to support yourself. The trust fund might not survive the asset seizures. He ended the call, setting the phone down carefully on his desk. Vanessa's parting shot lingered in his mind. Would he regret this? Would the satisfaction of revenge be worth the collateral damage to his own life? Before he could dwell on it further, his assistant buzzed through. Mr. Kellen, there are federal agents here to see you. They say it's regarding Porter Pierce banking. This was expected, the inevitable next step in the process. Send them in, Harry instructed, straightening his tie. 2 agents entered, a man and a woman, both in the nondescript suits that screamed federal law enforcement. They introduced themselves as Special Agents Wilson and Diaz from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We understand you may have information pertinent to our investigation of Porter Pierce banking. Agent Wilson began, his tone professionally neutral. Harry nodded. I do. I was married to Lorraine Porter, daughter of Vernon Porter. I've had extensive dealings with both Vernon Porter and Maxwell Pierce over the years. We'd like to ask you some specific questions about those dealings, Agent Diaz said, taking out a notepad, particularly regarding any knowledge you might have of improper financial practices or regulatory evasion. For the next 2 hours, Harry carefully navigated their questions, revealing enough to be cooperative while ensuring he couldn't be implicated in any wrongdoing himself. He confirmed what he knew about Vernon and Pierce's desperate attempts to shore up their failing bank, including the plot to use his house as collateral without his knowledge or consent. When they asked about the whistleblower complaints that had triggered the investigation, Harry expressed ignorance. I've been distanced from the Porter family since filing for divorce recently. Any information that came to light must have been from someone with more direct access to their financial dealings. The agents exchanged a glance that suggested they didn't entirely believe him, but had no evidence to contradict his statement. One more question, Mr. Kellen, Agent Wilson said as they prepared to leave. Did you have any knowledge of Maxwell Pierce's relationship with Diana Mercer, daughter of State Banking Commissioner Trent Mercer? Harry maintained a carefully neutral expression. I became aware of it recently, yes. It was one of the factors that led to my divorce filing, as Mr. Pierce was simultaneously involved with my wife. And did you take any action with that information? Agent Diaz pressed. Contact Commissioner Mercer, perhaps? No, Harry replied truthfully. That would have been inappropriate. I focused on my own legal situation, the divorce. The agents thanked him for his time and left, promising they might need to speak with him again as the investigation progressed. After they departed, Harry called Terence. The FBI just left. They're casting a wide net. I expected as much, Terence replied. They interviewed me this morning as well. I stuck to what we discussed, just the facts I knew firsthand, nothing about our coordinated efforts. Good. When do you leave for Chicago? Tomorrow morning. I've already shipped most of my things. Terence paused. Harry, have you seen the latest? About Commissioner Mercer? Harry hadn't. What about him? He resigned an hour ago, effective immediately, cited personal reasons and the need to support his family during a difficult time. The governor's already appointed an interim commissioner, who's pushing the investigation forward, I assume. With remarkable speed, Terence confirmed. They've already announced the appointment of an independent auditor for Porter Pierce books. Harry absorbed this information with grim satisfaction. The dominoes were falling exactly as he had envisioned. There's something else, Terrence added hesitantly. Vanessa called me. She was distraught. Said her mother had taken pills. Harry's blood ran cold. Lorraine? Is she? She's alive, Terrence quickly assured him. Hotel staff found her in time. She's in the hospital now. Relief washed over Harry, followed immediately by anger at himself for caring. That wasn't part of the plan, he said, more to himself than to Terrence. None of us can control how people respond to consequences, Harry, Terrence said quietly. We set events in motion, but where they lead, that's not entirely up to us. After hanging up, Harry sat alone in his office, staring out at the city skyline as evening approached. The revenge he had so carefully orchestrated was playing out perfectly in one sense. The Porters and Pierce were facing the destruction of everything they valued, just as they had tried to do to him. But the collateral damage was mounting. Lorraine's suicide attempt. The unnamed employees of Porter Pierce who would lose their jobs when the bank inevitably failed. The ripple effects that would touch people he had never met, never intended to hurt. Yet even knowing this, he couldn't bring himself to regret his actions. The Porters and Pierce had made their choices knowing the potential consequences. They had been willing to destroy him without a second thought. His counterstrike was merely proportional to their original attack. As darkness fell, Harry received one final call, from Maxwell Pierce himself. Kellen, Pierce said without preamble, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. I know you're behind this. Behind what exactly? Harry asked innocently. The investigation into your bank's financial irregularities? The exposure of your relationship with Diana Mercer? The revelations about how you and Vernon used Lorraine as a pawn in your business schemes? You'll have to be more specific. All of it, Pierce snarled. This coordinated attack. It has your fingerprints all over it. I think you're giving me too much credit, Harry replied calmly. I'm just a construction and real estate developer, remember? Hardly capable of orchestrating a federal investigation. Cut the act, Pierce demanded. What do you want? What will it take to call off this vendetta? Harry's voice hardened. You still don't get it, do you? There's nothing you can offer me. No deal to be made. This isn't a negotiation. It's a reckoning. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? Pierce threatened. The people I know, the connections I have. The connections you're rapidly losing, you mean? Harry interrupted. Tell me, how supportive are your foreign investors now that they know you've been lying about the bank's assets? How is Diana Mercer handling the discovery that she was just a means to manipulate her father? How is Commissioner Mercer enjoying his sudden retirement? Pierce fell silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its bluster, replaced by something colder and more dangerous. This isn't over, Kellen. People like you don't win against people like me. Not in the long run. We'll see, Harry replied. But from where I'm sitting, it looks like I already have. After ending the call, Harry stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. Pierce's threat lingered in his mind, but he dismissed it. The man was drowning, grasping at straws. By the time the federal investigation concluded, Maxwell Pierce would be lucky to avoid prison, let alone pose any threat. His phone buzzed with a text from Natalie, turning in for the night. Tomorrow will bring more developments. Are you satisfied with how things are proceeding? Harry considered the question carefully. Was he satisfied? The Porters and Pierce were facing professional and personal ruin. Their scheme to steal his house and exploit his marriage had been exposed and thwarted. Lorraine would get nothing in the divorce. Justice, by any objective measure, was being served. Yet the hollow feeling persisted. Not regret, exactly, but a recognition that revenge, however complete, couldn't undo the betrayal that had necessitated it. It couldn't restore his faith in people or heal the wounds to his pride and trust. Progress is as expected, he texted back. We'll assess satisfaction when it's complete. As he prepared to leave the office, Harry realized that tomorrow would bring not just more developments in the Porter Pierce investigation, but the beginning of whatever came after. The revenge that had consumed his thoughts and energy for weeks would eventually end. The question was what would fill the void it left behind. It was a question he wasn't yet ready to answer. Chapter 9. Ashes and Rebirth. 1 month later, Harrison Kellen stood on the deck of his lakeside drive home, watching as the moving company loaded the last of his furnishings into their truck. The house that had been the catalyst for so much conflict was empty now, its rooms echoing with memories he was eager to leave behind. The sale had closed yesterday, a cash offer well above asking price from a tech executive relocating from the West Coast. Harry had accepted without negotiation, wanting only to be done with the property and all it represented. In the 4 weeks since the federal investigation into Porter Pierce banking had begun, the full extent of Vernon and Maxwell's financial crimes had been exposed. The bank had been placed into receivership, its legitimate assets sold to a larger financial institution to protect depositors. Vernon Porter had been indicted on multiple counts of fraud, financial misrepresentation, and conspiracy. He was currently free on bail, awaiting trial, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Maxwell Pierce faced similar charges, with the added complication of potential bribery charges related to his relationship with Diana Mercer. The scandal had snowballed beyond anything even Harry had anticipated. Commissioner Mercer's resignation had led to investigations into regulatory decisions he had made during his tenure. Congressman Winters had broken off his engagement to Diana Mercer within days of the scandal breaking. The Porter name, once synonymous with old money and social prestige, was now associated with fraud and corruption. As for Lorraine, she had been released from the hospital after a 3-day psychiatric hold following her suicide attempt. According to Natalie's sources, she was staying with a distant cousin in another state, having been essentially disowned by her mother when Gloria realized Lorraine would bring no financial benefit to the family anymore. The divorce had been finalized with surprising speed, Lorraine offering no contest to any of Harry's terms. As specified in the prenuptial agreement, she walked away with only her personal possessions and her car. The woman who had once looked down on Harry's self-made fortune was now effectively destitute. Vanessa's situation was little better. With her family's finances in ruins and Terrence gone to Chicago, she had been forced to move back in with Gloria, who was herself facing the loss of the Porter family home once Vernon's assets were seized to pay restitution to defrauded investors. Harry had kept tabs on all these developments with a detached interest that surprised even him. The white-hot rage that had driven his revenge had cooled, leaving behind a more calculated satisfaction. He had destroyed those who had tried to destroy him, just as he had intended. Yet as he watched the movers secure the last items in their truck, he found himself wondering about the cost of that victory, not in financial terms, but in what it had revealed about himself. "All set, Mr. Kellen," the moving company's supervisor called, approaching with a clipboard. "Everything's loaded and ready for delivery to the new place. Just need your signature here." Harry signed the form, then handed the man a generous tip. "Thank you. I appreciate the care you've taken." As the trucks pulled away, Leo arrived in his Range Rover, rolling down the window as he pulled into the driveway. "Ready for your last goodbye to the old homestead?" Harry glanced back at the empty house. More than ready. They drove in companionable silence for a while, Leo occasionally glancing at his friend with concern. "You know," he finally said, "I never doubted you'd make them pay for what they did. But I've been worried about what it's done to you, Harry." Harry turned from the window to look at his friend. "What do you mean?" "The Harry I knew before all this. He was tough in business, sure, but he wasn't ruthless. He didn't calculate people's weaknesses and exploit them like chess pieces." Leo kept his eyes on the road as he spoke. "I'm just saying, revenge changes people. Sometimes not for the better." Harry considered this. The man I was before was naive, trusting. He let people take advantage of him because he wanted to believe in the good in others. "And the man you are now?" "Wiser," Harry replied simply. "Less willing to be anyone's fool." Leo nodded, accepting the answer even if he didn't entirely agree with it. "So what's next for the new, wiser Harrison Kellen, now that the revenge tour is complete?" It was a question Harry had been asking himself more frequently as the Porter Pierce saga wound down. The new penthouse he had purchased downtown was impressive, but felt impersonal compared to the home he had built for himself on Lakeside Drive. His business continued to thrive, but it no longer provided the same satisfaction it once had. "I'm not sure," Harry admitted. "Expansion, maybe. I've had offers to take the company into markets in other states. Could be time for a fresh start somewhere new." They pulled up to a restaurant where Natalie was waiting for them, the final meeting of what Leo had jokingly called the Revenge Committee. She greeted them with her usual efficiency, already having secured a private booth in the back. "Well, gentlemen," she said once they were seated with drinks, "I suppose this concludes our business together. The final report on the Porters and Pierce is complete. They're finished professionally and socially. Thanks to your thorough work, Harry acknowledged, raising his glass in a toast. I couldn't have done it without you, Nat. She inclined her head in acknowledgement. Just doing my job. Though I have to admit, this one was particularly satisfying. People like the Porters believe they're untouchable. Proving otherwise has a certain appeal. Heard from Terrence lately? Leo asked, changing the subject. Last week, Harry replied. He's settling in well in Chicago. The new firm is impressed with his work. He seems lighter, somehow, like he shed a burden. Some marriages are prisons, Natalie observed dispassionately. Ending them is liberation, not failure. Harry knew she was referring to Terrence, but the words resonated with his own situation as well. Despite the ugliness of how his marriage had ended, he couldn't deny that he felt liberated from a relationship that had been built on false pretenses from the beginning. Their conversation drifted to lighter topics. Leo's new boat, Natalie's upcoming vacation, Harry's plans for his business. For the first time in months, Harry found himself genuinely relaxed, the weight of his vendetta finally lifting. As the evening wound down, Leo excused himself to take a call from his wife, leaving Harry and Natalie alone at the table. I've been meaning to ask you something, Natalie said, swirling the ice in her glass. Now that it's all over, was it worth it? Harry considered the question carefully. If you're asking whether I regret what we did, the answer is no. They deserved everything that happened to them. That's not quite what I asked, Natalie pressed. Was it worth it? Did destroying them heal what they broke in you? The directness of the question caught Harry off guard. I don't know, he admitted after a pause. I'm not sure anything could fully repair that kind of betrayal. But making them pay, it brought a certain closure. Natalie nodded, accepting his answer. For what it's worth, Harry, I think you showed remarkable restraint. Given what they did to you, you could have been much crueler in your revenge. How so? Harry asked, genuinely curious. You could have exposed Lorraine's affair publicly, humiliating her in front of her social circle before the financial scandal broke. You could have sabotaged Vanessa's relationship with Terrence directly, rather than simply revealing the truth and letting him make his own decision. You could have manufactured evidence against Vernon and Pierce rather than just exposing what was already there. Natalie shrugged. You worked within certain boundaries, even in your revenge. That says something about who you are. Her observation gave Harry pause. He hadn't thought of his actions in terms of restraint. He had been focused on effectiveness rather than cruelty for its own sake. But she was right. Even at his most ruthless, he had maintained certain principles. Maybe the old Harry isn't entirely gone after all, he mused. He shouldn't be, Natalie replied firmly. The man who earned everything he had through hard work and integrity. That's who they couldn't break, not really. That's who won in the end. As they parted ways outside the restaurant, Natalie surprised Harry by offering a brief, professional hug. Take care of yourself, Harry. And if you ever need my services again, preferably for something less dramatic next time, you know where to find me. Later that night, in the sleek but soulless penthouse that didn't yet feel like home, Harry stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. His phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. It was Vernon's funeral today. No one from the business community attended. Only family. This is what you wanted, isn't it? Everyone alone and ruined. I hope it brings you peace. L. Harry stared at the message for a long time. He hadn't known about Vernon's death, heart attack, presumably, given the stress of his legal troubles. He searched his feelings for remorse and found none. Vernon Porter had made his choices, knowing the risks. So had Lorraine. So had all of them. He deleted the message without responding. On his desk lay a stack of proposals from his business development team. Expansion opportunities in Phoenix, Denver, Seattle. Fresh markets, new challenges, clean slates. Perhaps that was what he needed now. Not just a new home, but a new beginning entirely. Harrison Kellen had survived betrayal. He had exacted his revenge. He had proven to himself and others that he was not a man to be underestimated or exploited. The question that remained was what kind of man he would choose to be moving forward. The trusting, generous person he had been before, or the calculating, ruthless force he had become during his campaign against the Porters. Perhaps neither. Perhaps something new. A man who combined the best qualities of both versions of himself. Someone who could build rather than destroy, but who would never again be anyone's victim. As he turned from the window, Harry caught his reflection in the glass. Older, harder, but standing straight and unbowed. Whatever came next, he would face it on his own terms, beholden to no one, with no illusions about human nature, but perhaps, in time, with the capacity to trust again. Not Lorraine, not the Porters, never them. Some betrayals were beyond forgiveness. But not everyone was like them. Not every relationship was built on exploitation. It was time to find out what the next chapter held for Harrison Kellen, a man who had lost everything except himself, and in doing so, had found a strength he never knew he possessed. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.